Good afternoon, or good morning if you're further west of me, or good evening if you're further east of me. My name is Dale Rodriguez, and this is a Flabonga Month of the Cube. And with me today, I've got Marcus Batson. Hey, Marcus, how you doing?
Hey, very good, thank you. How you doing?
Good. Yeah, I'm good. I think the first question would be to ask you is your name on this show. You've put Marcus at Swoop. What's Swoop?
Yeah. What is Swoop? So Swoop is a funding and savings platform for SMEs, but we help both the SME and their advisors to deliver things like loans, grants, equity, and other ways we can save them a bit of money as well.
Cool. What's the best thing about working at Swoop?
The people was always the first one I jumped to, because whilst we are a tech company, the people that sit behind it are really key as part of a lot of those conversations. But also the breadth of offering, I think is quite important as well. I think I quite enjoy having loads of different conversations, whether it be about funding, but that's not always, or debt financing, that's not always the first place to start. It might be around credit improvement or grants. So I quite like the variety of it and the different businesses we meet.
Cool. I have to give a shout out to a viewer. Darren Glanville's here. He says, "Hola." Hey, Darren. How's it going? Thank you for watching.
A veteran of the accounting space. How you doing, Darren?
He's a good guy. He's also a sponsor of the show. He's put in a little bit of money so I can up my game. He's the one that helped me pay for this ring light. So thank you, Darren. Much appreciated.
Good man.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Next question. How do you get your beard so thick and luxurious?
A beard oil is a big one. Whilst it is a bit of a pain and it can be a little bit gross at times, it is important. Otherwise, it goes a little bit stiff, so not that great. And just treat it like hair. Even though I haven't got a lot at the top, I try and protect what I've got underneath. So yeah, trying to keep what I have stuck to my head. Yeah.
And obviously, we don't really do endorsements and stuff on this show. I mean, I might do in the future. Is there a particular beard oil that you recommend? Is it like a type of coconut oil? We're talking some shea butter. What's going in that?
I mean, coconut oil was a good shout. It's also pretty good for you. And other than that, there's a lot of brands out there. Like Bulldog's always quite a good one. Other brands are available, but yeah, that's always a good one to go for.
Okay. Sorry, the reason why I'm smirking and smiling is as you know, I kind of do these off the cuff. I have some ideas of what I want to say and what I ask.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm like, do I ask him a serious question? Do we make it businessy? Do I ask him a silly personal question? And I'm voting for, basically in my head is like a little mini twister wheel and it spins and then I kind of ask the question. So next question, are you a man of Kent or a Kentish man or neither?
It depends what the definition of each of those are, but I am from Kent, always been from down here, which is quite close to, I think it's actually a few people in this space that are down this way. I know that a couple of the app guys are from Kent, yourself being down in Canterbury, so a little bit outside of where I am. I'm up in Medway, well, Gillingham to be more specific, but yeah.
Are you Gillingham born and bred, or Medway born and bred?
Medway, yeah. I was born in Chatham, as most of the Medway folk are, and then lived in Gillingham, and now I suppose we're probably more Rainham now, but all around the same sort of area.
If you don't mind me asking, this is leading to a follow-on question. How old are you?
I am 30.
You're 30.
Yeah.
Did you ever go to a club called Amadeus?
I was just a little bit too young to go. Well, I was, and they had like unders nights and stuff. So where you go if you're under 18, and my mum was a little bit too protective to let me go. To what was quite.
She was wise.
Yeah, I've heard many a story about Amadeus, and I think that was part of its demise. I think was some of those stories.
I mean, the nickname was Amma Dangerous.
Yeah,
it was wild. Wild. It got silly.
I've heard many a story, but no, I didn't go to that. The only ones locally around here that I'd go to is like casino rooms and other bits. But I'm probably a little bit past that now. A sort of 9:30, 9 bedtime is where I tend to play.
No, ditto.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you like a business question or a personal question next?
Let's mix it up. It's up to you.
Okay, so you've been in like the finance and accounting space for a while. You started working originally at NatWest at the bank,
yeah,
and then you kind of changed track a little bit. Is there anything in particular that made you want to change your career trajectory?
It's more just going a bit broader, really. Like I think NatWest is an incredible place to learn a lot of the kind of fundamentals of a business and how they work and their needs. but that is just one lender with one set of services. So it was quite nice to go out into, so I went from there to funding exchange, which is quite a nice digital broker. They did a lot around the bank referral scheme and bits as well. So any business that was declined from their high street bank was then referred through the likes of funding exchange and a few other providers. So it's nice to then see what other options are at the market. IWOC is a massive player in that space, so we work quite closely with the team over there. So Matt White and the others in the team. So it's good to see the variety. I think you can become a little bit institutionalized if you spend a little bit too long at those sort of organizations. I think it's good to be able to see what else is out in the market, and I quite enjoy techie things anyway. And I think if I can blend that into a bit of a fintech vibe, that worked really well for me. I think I've always stayed in that space since then.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. What has been your favorite achievement in the time you've been working in fintech? Do you have like a particular story or like a win that kind of pops into your head? That like, yeah, I nailed it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely quite a few things. I think being at an early stage of a lot of the companies I've been at has been obviously a huge learning curve. So both all the three key ones that I've been at, so you have Funding Exchange, Capitalize, and now at Swoop, all three of them have been quite early stage when I joined. And being part of a startup, it's a completely different vibe to being within a business that's been going for quite a long time. I had a bit of a break from this space in between, where I worked at a company called Lendscape, and they basically provide all the software that sits behind the likes of Bibby Financial and Lloyd's Banking Group around for things like invoice finance. That was kind of me branching out a little bit and touching some of that enterprise sales type stuff. That was really good, but I do quite like a little bit of anxiety you get with working in a startup, and that you don't really have that level of, you don't have a fully fledged HR team and all the different departments. You've got to be a little bit entrepreneurial yourself, and I quite enjoy that. And obviously working with accountants makes it a lot better, which is never a phrase I thought I'd say, but the more you work with them, the better it is. And I think I've met loads of incredible people from working in the fintech space.
I can kind of relate. Before I worked in this industry, I was one of those people that had a stereotype of accountants that's just so untrue. It's a fascinating world to work in. There are some there are some fascinating people with amazing personalities.
Absolutely.
It's not just the bean counter stereotype. So yeah, no, I get that. I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Like,
Sure.
straight up. We're going to move closer. There we go. There we are.
Intimate.
You work for Swoop, who are, if I can explain, they're like a lending broker or platform that helps people get towards lenders. Is that correct?
Yeah, effectively. Like we do, loans, grants, and savings. Yeah.
You also worked for, like, I would say their biggest like-for-like competitor. There are lots of people who give loans and grants and funding, but like Capitalize are possibly the biggest competitor. They're the two names that come up in that accounting/bookkeeping/fintech space.
Absolutely, in that industry. Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you which one's best because that's a cheeky question. Also, you work for one of them, so you're going to say which one's the best. But like, for the layman's, like, what's the differences? Like, why one over the other? Because they obviously have a slightly different offering or preferences to offerings. So there must be a difference.
There is. I think the key difference really is breadth. I think at Swoop, there's definitely a broader offering because we touch on things like the local grants as well as things like equity. So we support people with raising investment and getting ready for that. And obviously some of the savings products as well. So deposit savings and bits we do a little bit differently. And sometimes I think a lot of it is down to specialisms. Both of them are quite people-led businesses, and there's lots of different specialists in each. I think it's down to the preference of the practice, I think, as to which one you go ahead with. Capitalize will have a bit more of a focus on the credit side of things. They've got a strong offering around using experience data to improve credit and the suppliers and debtors. We focus more on sort of funding and savings as our kind of core offering. So a lot of it, whilst we do play in the similar space and probably do communicate similar things, we do have slightly different specialisms, and I think it's down to the preference and client base that you have as to which one you choose.
Okay, that's a really good answer. Thank you. And do you know what I really liked about that answer? Absolute respect to you. Like, you didn't bash the competition. Like, you said it as it is.
No, absolutely. I enjoy it. I enjoy the competition because it just validates our mission. I think the more people that play in that space, I think it just encourages people to explore it. Same thing, like, I mean, Darren's a great example. There's loads of people in that space that do forecasting, financial modeling, and scenario planning, but they all do things slightly differently and interpret it in slightly different ways. So it's really down to your preference, but it just shows there's a huge need in the SME space for that forward planning. So again, it just validates your own thinking.
Cool. I'm just going to read out Darren's comment as well because he agrees with
Go
you.
for it.
Darren Glanville, there's nothing like a fintech startup to get the adrenaline
Absolutely
flowing.
Absolutely.
I can imagine. And again, Darren is well versed in it. Like he's X0, right?
Yeah.
Like so. Yeah.
Knows his stuff.
He knows his stuff. Respected by many. Okay, let's bring it to the personal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, believe it or not, I don't know much about the grime scene. I respect it, I appreciate it, and I'm grateful that it's here for so many reasons.
Yep.
What is grime?
Interesting. So it's really, again, my interpretation of it, because there'll be some other people out there that are way more of an expert in this field than I am, but it's like a subset of rap, of UK rap, and it's from, I think, East London is where it originally started. It's the real difference is it's probably beats per minute is how you define grime. And also it's very known for its sort of like metaphors and simile use and sort of wordplay and not being as aggressive as the likes of things like drill and stuff like that that's out there. Still quite aggressive, but not.
That was going to be my next question. What's the difference between grime and drill? So drill's more aggressive? Is it the beats per minute? Is it?
It's slightly higher tempo drill, and it's definitely more aggressive. I think it's definitely got a negative connotation with sort of gangs and stuff. It also, I think, originally started off in the US, and we adopted and adapted it within the UK. So grime is from like UK garage, and I think it spun out of that. And then the drill came from the US, and we kind of tweaked and changed it into what is UK drill now.
See, now garage, that's something I can get behind. So back in the day, for me, it was like Oxide Neutrino, So Solid Crew. And I know, is Lethal Bizzle considered like grime?
Yeah,
because he was like one of the originators, right? Like
he is, yeah. He does a bit more on there. I suppose some of his tunes have been a bit more like pop-like, I suppose. So it kind of overlaps sort of pop music to grime. But yeah, I would say that he's definitely a grime artist.
Okay. So if I was someone who's never really heard it before, who would you recommend I listen to? What tracks, which artists to get a flavour of it?
It's got to be, I think the original ones has got to be things like Skepta or JME, Wiley, Stormzy. They're going to be your kind of key ones. And they're the ones that you probably see a lot. Stormzy is pretty much a household name now. So he started off in that space. He did a lot of iconic tracks and that, and used a lot of the soundtracks from other tunes that he kind of then made his own. So he's quite a notable guy. So I think that sort of thing. JME is also a very good one for wordplay. So I think he's definitely a bit more of a playful one with it. He's not as aggressive as the others and doesn't talk about sort of gang violence and all that other stuff that makes its way into that.
No, I mean, now that you mention again, I'm not going to say I'm a connoisseur, but I remember when I was younger, like 15, 16, the track by Lethal Bizzle, Pow came out, and if anyone's like heard that is literally them listing ways of how they're going to shoot and murder people. And I swear, there's one guy in the crew, like his verse is maybe 15 seconds. He just lists guns. That's what it is.
Yeah, there's a couple of versions of Pow. The original one was like, I don't know, 2007 or something.
I mean, there's some glorious lines in it though. Bring some beef, lose some teeth. Like,
yeah,
that's just fantastic. Sorry, that's glorious.
Absolutely, and it's I enjoy it. Again, I'm not an advocate of gang crime in any way, but it's I really enjoy the wordplay and that they have in there, and it's as I put in that post, which I'm assuming is where you got that from. It's a good instrumental when you're working hard and trying to power through a bit of admin is, for me anyway, a great way to get some focus.
Yeah, and you mentioned different versions of Pow. The one I've heard that I think is the best is with Dame Judi Dench. Have you heard it?
Yeah, I haven't heard that particular one. I see a video on YouTube of Lethal Bizzle doing an interview with Dame Judi Dench, and is like very much like the questions you put in that post. I'd never thought I'd see that in the same place.
Right. I mean, they change it. It's like Pow, I'm due to the D. Pow, if you don't know about me. Pow, better ask someone quick me. Pow, I'm due to the D. It's incredible. It's like the mashup.
That's the best word for it. It's quite incredible. Yeah. Okay. All right. Back to business. Sorry.
Again, the wheel is spinning in my head.
That's good. Power of the pause. We love it.
Who, in your opinion, is someone you should follow in the world of SME fintech?
Ooh, that's a good question. There's a few of those sort of like LinkedIn voices that are out there. There's a guy called, I can't remember the guy's name. I may put it in the comments afterwards. Called Simon something. Pops up on my feed quite a lot. There's a few guys that put a lot of the posts out. Phil Hobden's always good for putting out new articles and stuff. I'm a bit of a nerd in terms of like podcasts, and saying he's got one himself with Know It, and always posts out sort of the latest sort of fintech news. So he's absolutely plugged into the to that space. Who else is in there? To be fair, any of the app owners, so that like the chap over that runs Float, there's a few really good people that are quite thought-provoking in their posts, about how new ways to approach working with clients, and a lot of that they've brought in from other industries as well. So I think it's definitely worth following some of the team members of any of their apps if you are an accountant that you do work with, because they do post some really good stuff. Go Proposal is also a good one. Again, whether it's fintech related is your interpretation, but
it's kind of there. Yeah,
absolutely. So like your Heather Elkington or your James Ashford always post some really interesting stuff, whether it be about sales or leadership or whatever it is. So it's quite a nice overlap.
Cool. I'll jump into the comments real quick. Mark Howison, long-time viewer / listener, he's also been on the show. Fit like Faye Aberdeen, plenty of dames up here, that's for sure. I don't know if you're quoting a song, Mark, or just telling me that there's lots of women in Aberdeen. I probably didn't even pronounce it correctly because my Scottish accent is atrocious. But Mark, as always, thank you for watching and commenting. We've got Debbie Hales, Debbie Hales, because she's from the Medway as well. Looks like I arrived just at the business bit. You did, Debbie. We talked about business. Okay, next question for you, Marcus.
Go for it.
As someone who works in the bookkeeping and accounting space, I understand the benefits of using a product or provider like Swoop. How would you explain what Swoop is to a business owner? Because I can imagine what happens is, right, bookkeeper, accountant goes, hey, client, I partner with Swoop. They're amazing. They're going to take some of your data and they're going to help you get money. What? Yeah. Do you have to deal with clients, and how would you explain what you actually provide?
Yeah, so I think it's really about the accounting explaining this. It is a bit of a broader conversation. So, I mean, the way that accountant probably explain it is that it's a great way for you to source and save time accessing the likes of funding, but also a range of other financial products in the market that will help you save time, money, and hopefully reduce risk within the business. So we tend to focus on encouraging the accountants to use it as part of their own offering, as opposed to like a referral partner, more because it complements what they already do. So they're having regular conversations with clients. Maybe they're doing a little bit of management reporting or whatever it might be, but it complements a lot of those conversations, whether it be as part of a tax planning conversation and you're looking to encouraging the client to buy assets in the business. You can also carry that conversation through to how to actually raise funding to buy that asset. Whether it's cash flow and it's part of a VAT conversation, you can tack on the use of funding to help spread those payments out. So we try and encourage it to complement your own offering and not be a completely separate service line within the practice. It can be, but I think it works the best when it complements some of the services you already deliver.
Okay. What is the hardest thing about promoting Swoop or selling it? What's the most difficult challenge you face? It's
probably it's a good point. I think a lot of it's around about where the firms are at in their journey and whether they're ready to have these kind of conversations with clients. You would have seen it before, being the kind of systems guys. I think the adoption of, quite a broad term, but like cloud is definitely a journey, and I think a lot of firms are still on that. So if you're a very, very old school paper-based firm that hasn't really adopted much in the way of automation, and you do want to do more for your clients, there's probably a few steps to take before looking at something like a Swoop. Whereas if you started to create a bit of automation, you're using something like Xero, you're using a couple of apps in there to save you time and really free up yourself and the team to have these conversations. That's now probably the time to start thinking about, okay, we've got a little bit of capacity here. How do we start to find ways to add value to clients and then also make that commercial for the practice as well? So the hardest part is catching them at the right time in that journey, and also, I suppose, tailoring what we do into their firm.
Yeah, that must be quite tricky. Do you ever get asked questions about GDPR and data protection? Because again, that's one of people's biggest concerns, right? Where's my data going? How do you handle it when you get those kind of questions?
Yeah, good question. We have lots of security bits within internally. We've got accreditations and bits. Is how we manage that. And with the agreement, we partner with the accounting firms on like a subscription basis. There's absolutely an agreement in there that we're here to process the data. We're not here to necessarily use it in the way to sell to third parties. So it's very clear about how we manage that information. We know that security is quite key, particularly for relationships, but also reputational risk and other bits as well. So it is something we always have in mind.
Cool. Debbie Hales asked a question. What do you think about the Tradeify app?
Good question.
Is that to both of us, or like? I have heard of it. I've never really used it, and there are other providers that I prefer, but that's based on the clients that I've spoken to and what they need. So it's a very good app. But
it's for managing jobs. Is it?
Yeah, it's like a job management tool. So that's my understanding of it, and a costing tool as well. So it's pretty good, but my clients have had a preference for something else. So yeah. Kevin Lord, Mark Howson, fit like Mark. As a former RGU student, I concur. I feel like there's a conversation going on here that I don't fully understand. Kevin and Mark, the two Scottish dudes in the conversation, if you guys want to maybe explain or dumb it down for me, I'd be much appreciated. I don't know what's going on. But yeah.
If you had Kevin on the podcast, he's a good lad.
Had him on about I think it's 2 weeks ago. It wasn't last week. It was 2 weeks ago. I had Kevin on.
Oh, I missed that. I need to watch that back.
Yeah. Listen to it back. He drops some like just insane knowledge in terms of fintech, what's going on, because he's doing all the AML kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I learned a lot.
They've got their festival coming up, the AML festival coming up. There's quite a lot of promo.
I want to say next week.
Yeah, it's going to happen pretty soon.
Yeah. Okay, so I got another comment from Debbie. Hold on. Trade job planning and it works with Xero. Yeah, Tradeify. It's one of the options. Other apps are available. But yeah. Do you have any questions for me, by the way? Like I ask all
There's always been one that I wanted to ask you. You might have already said it on a call before, but in your bio you've got fluent in, can you recall it like leet speak or something like this? It's like you've used like letters and numbers within that. Do you want to explain that for a layman? Because I've never worked it out.
Yeah, so it's leet speak. And in my opinion, it's one of the coolest things to come out of the internet, right? So the term elite comes from the game World of Warcraft, back when it was like, new 15, 20 years ago. You'd have a classification of your items. Your armor, your sword would be elite level. And to get an elite character, so you'd have the level cap at 60, or was it 50 at the time? And to make your character the best, you have an elite character with the best armor, the best weapon. And somehow on the internet, someone changed that from elite to leet. And the term leet basically means someone who is boss level usually in an MMORPG, so multiplayer online role-playing game, right? All right. But it permeated geek society. It permeated net culture and became almost like a net slang. So the premise is really simple. It's been agreed upon that certain numbers mean letters in a word. So E, for example, is always 3.
Yeah.
Right? T is usually 7. It configures a little bit, but generally speaking. So when people say they speak leet speak, they're just changing letters for numbers in words. But it's really cool because it transcended so many language barriers, because the basis of leet speak is English at a start, and there's all these kind of like different slang words that go in there. So like you can say you own someone, and it's usually spelled 0WND. You own someone. And it's basically when you play like a player versus player game, you beat them really badly.
Yeah,
you got owned. But and there's all this slang that goes around it.
Nice. Okay, interesting. So you mentioned World of Warcraft. You were a RuneScaper back in the day.
Oh my goodness! Sorry, thank you for saying that. That was a blast from the past. Yes, I did play RuneScape back in the day. Did you?
I did dabble as a kid, as a little bit of a hermit, as a kid. Yeah, when I wasn't out doing stuff I shouldn't have been. It was a little bit of RuneScape, which was.
How do I follow up with that? How do I follow up with that question? What stuff shouldn't you have been doing when you were out?
I was just being a early teenage menace, I suppose. But no, nothing too serious. But no, it's just if I wasn't out about doing stuff, I was indoors on the computer, and a little bit of RuneScape. But I lose interest in things quite quick, so I need to spend that a little while. I've got friends that there's like a newer version of it now, which I didn't even realize it still existed. That a couple of my friends that I knew from school, I think still play it, which is quite extraordinary.
That's an achievement. I thought RuneScape
It
died.
really is.
If I'm not going to lie.
That's what I thought. It's come. If you look at it, if you ever Google it, obviously the graphics at the time when we were playing it, the graphics were quite poor.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's like a weird little. It looks like you painted it like an oil painting level definition of the face.
It
and
was.
stuff. But now it's looking a bit more 3D-ified, so it doesn't feel the same anymore.
Yeah. Excuse me. I'm going to adjust my lighting, which means people aren't going to be able to see me, but I can't read the comments that are coming in. So let's just change that. No, I'm just very dark. It is what it is. And now I'm going to go to the comments real quick because they've lit up. So Kaylee Graham said, "Hey Kaylee, how you doing? It's the one where he gave me a shout out." Yes, Kevin Lord gave Kaylee a shout out 2 weeks ago on FM. That happened. That's very kind of him.
It's quite a frequent thing,
right.
I think.
She's cool.
Yeah, I tried to hold it back on this one. She has too many shout outs.
My job here is. Well, it's the problem with Kaylee is she's just too good at what she does. That's the issue. Right?
Absolutely.
That's the issue. Like just be worse at what you do, Kaylee, then you wouldn't be so held in such high regard. Kevin Lord, my job here is done. Debbie Hales, I'm curious, which ones do you think are good for the construction industry? So now we're talking about trade apps. There are so many out there. So you've got ServiceMate, you've got Tradify, as you mentioned, you've got Next Minute, you've got Fergus, and they all Simpro, and they sit in different areas. So Simpro and Fergus, they are for larger businesses with like multiple projects, with multiple employees, multiple trade, what do you call it, CSI kind of guys in there. ServiceMate and Next Minute, they will admit that they work with a smaller client type. So again, your tradies, your kitchen fitters, your gas engineer, all those kind of people. So it depends on what you really like. But those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. Kevin Lord's back in the comments. Sorry, Marcus, I'm reading all these comments. I'm not even talking to you. You're just sitting here absorbing all these words.
Yeah, it's good. You got quite a big audience there.
Kevin Lord, fit like in. Actually, you give it a go. Can you read it out for the people who are listening?
Yeah, so fit like in the Aberdeen dialect known as Doric means hey, how you doing?
Oh, cool.
There you go.
Didn't know that. Every day is a learning, Jay. We got Mark Howson again. Is the Labour stance towards O&G, i.e. tax them to the hilt, causing any challenges towards funding for companies involved in O&G? Wow, that's a good business-based question.
It is. If I can quickly work out what O&G stands for, I'll be able to...
So Mark works in oil and gas. So I'm
there we go.
Gas.
Yeah, I suppose we'd have been. I haven't really spent been that close working with any firms in oil and gas. It's always a challenging space to lend in. I think because they reputationally, I think for a lot of businesses or a lot of lenders, they're focusing on ESG as quite a big area. I think oil and gas always falls into that space where a lot of the big players, I know like Lloyd's banking group, have pulled out of certain industries. Oil and gas, I think, being at least some subsets of oil and gas they pulled out from. So you probably find more at a macro level that a lot of the lenders are looking at their sustainability and what that looks like in terms of the people that they're funding, but also their suppliers and stuff as well. So there's a lot of ESG apps, I think, out there in the zero kind of marketplace that do really well. And now in time, and when I worked at Lendscape, looking at, so if you're using something like invoice finance, looking at your debtors and how strong your supply chain is going to be and how sustainable that is quite important. So yeah, it will definitely become trickier. I don't know how that relates to some of the sort of Labour stance around it, and the taxes and stuff. But I know at a higher level, it's becoming a bit more challenging for those businesses that are deemed not to be sustainable.
Yeah, Mark, you've asked us a really good question. That's one of the deepest questions I've had on the show, to be honest, because it also brought in some politics as well. So thank you for asking that question. Hopefully the answer was helpful. A few more comments. Kaylee Graham's back in there again with I don't know, some kind of emoji and
a little tipping hand. Yeah.
And then Mark, the joker that he is, he says, shout out to Kaylee Graham as she clearly thrives on them. Jokes. All right. Yeah. Back to Grime.
Let's do it.
Important stuff people need to know. Of some of the artists you mentioned before, Stormzy, Skepta, I think I mentioned Lethal Bizzle, Dizzy Rascal. Have you seen any of those guys live? And if so, who's the best?
Oh, yeah, I've seen quite a few of them. Who would be the best? I think in terms of stage presence, I'd probably say Stormzy is one of the best. Because he just throws himself up and down that stage and really gets the crowd going. But
Hmm.
again, it depends how much of a Grime fan you are as to which ones that you. But anyone that is a big fan of Grime and sees likes of Skepta on stage is quite a moment. So yeah, I'd probably say Stormzy. Looking over here because I've actually got these little frames over here with Kano on it.
Assuming on you. There we go.
Did you see that? And they got there's a few others like Skepta and others on the side. So I am, a little bit of a fan. I've also got a.
How did you get into the? Sorry, go on.
Sorry. So there's actually
continue. I interrupted you.
I've got like a little card game as well with like a top trumps for all the different Grime artists and UK rap artists. It's down there. I'll get it out and show you at some point, but it's tucked away for now.
That's cool. Okay, that leads to another question. So I've played top trumps many a times with various different iterations. I've done James Bond top trumps. I've done Marvel top trumps. Whose card is the ultimate card? Because there's always a card in there that you say it and they've got like the best stats. If you can remember off the top of your head, who's got the best stats in the top trumps? Grime.
Off the top of my head, I think Wiley's definitely one. I think because he's classed himself as the godfather of Grime. So Wiley definitely has some higher stats in certain areas. Ego, most probably. So he's probably the highest one. Did you see the top trumps up at Accountex North? Because we do have.
No. Oh, you made cars, didn't you?
No, it was the Johan and Aaron on the podcast pit stop stand, and they'd made little Sam Duo top trunk cards. I thought was quite nice.
The one I've seen the most, I think it's Ryan Piercy's card because it's the proudest thing he's gotten out of sort of swag.
Nice. Should wear it on a chain. Yeah.
How did you get into Grime music?
I think just from young. Everyone listened to it when I was at school, so it was quite a popular genre when I was at school. Since then, apart from that thread, like I say, I put on LinkedIn, there was a few other fans in there. I haven't really got many people that still listen to it, but yeah, I've always been a bit of a fan. But yeah, probably from school. I've always quite like rap in a general sense. So you got to back your own. So it's quite nice to see the UK still pushing Grime. So, yeah,
that's a good dumb question. Do you think people's music preference and genre tastes affects how they are at work, or do you think it makes no difference whatsoever?
I don't think it affects how they are at work. I think it's very interesting to find out what songs they listen to, because we always assume, I think, and wrongly assume what sort of genres people might be listening to. So I think it's just very interesting to see what music people are into and how much of a variety that is as well. I was quite shocked in that thread that LinkedIn message in the thread that some people listen to genres that I'd never ever think they listen to. So I quite like it. I quite enjoy music. I listen to it. My Spotify listening time is horrendous. So I appreciate another music lover, irrelevant of the genre that you prefer.
Do you play an instrument?
I don't. Well, I'm sure I could give it a crack, but I'm no good. But I don't know. I don't play the instruments at all.
That's cool. And is there a genre that you really don't like? Like, you're someone who likes music. You've got a eclectic taste. I get that. But sometimes there's some genres that people just can't stand. So if it comes on, what are you switching off?
If it's a bit too cheesy, I think, and I've not had enough to drink, I think there's always a little bit of a journey to go on to really appreciate all of those sort of cheesy 80s and early 90s tunes. I've got a lot of friends that are really into really heavy, sort of screamy metal, which some of it, I'm absolutely on board with, but some of it I struggle to hear like a rhythm or something in the beat. So because it is quite, quite busy. It's probably the politest way of putting it. So yeah, some of that stuff I probably wouldn't. I find it quite hard to listen to, and with a partner or with even listen to it out loud, people do take offense to their music a little bit more than others, I think.
Yeah. I mean, do you have a partner that listens to something completely different to you, or do you have similar musical tastes? Or
no, she listens to very similar stuff. She's probably more on the bit more American and things like Caribbean sort of influence. So like your dancehall music, like your Vibes Cartel and that kind of stuff is probably more her preference. But still, I suppose similar at a high level. It's still like hip hop and rap.
And I have to ask you as well, because I think I put it in one of the posts. I mentioned a few Grime artists. Let's say they're all thrown into an MC pit, as it were. who's winning that battle, who's freestyling, who's so brutal they stand amongst everyone. Because like we all know when it comes to American rap, let's be honest, Eminem, like I don't think anyone would disagree.
He's most known for it. Yeah, he's most known for it.
For his aggressive battle raps.
If you've seen 8 Mile,
who's winning?
Yeah, UK wise, exactly. there's definitely a couple of. It's hard because they don't always do a true like rap battle. So, but the two notable ones, I mean, Skepta did one ages ago with a guy from Birmingham called Devilman. Is quite an iconic one. So he's definitely up there. And the more recent one, I suppose, that was quite stood out was when Stormzy did one with Wiley. They had a little bit of a tiff, if you like.
Beef.
Yeah, some verbal violence, and I'd probably say Stormzy won that one, and did some quite good sort of very confident, very high ego music videos to accompany it as well. So if anyone wants to watch It's Disappointed by Stormzy, it's him throwing a few shots at Wiley. So probably Stormzy and Skepta.
Okay, one more kind of music related question, and I'll try and bring it back to business.
Sure.
And this is possibly me showing my ignorance. Back in the day, I would say a video that went quite somewhat viral. It was Mark Greist versus Blizzard. I don't know if you've heard of this at all.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, the teacher.
Does that count as grime, or is it more garage, or is it MCing?
It kind of goes into that sort of. It's definitely inspired by that. I think it's more of the MC spin-off. The Blizzard is definitely an MC. It was just two guys. It was a young fella called youngish fella called Blizzard, sort of maybe mid to late teens, and a teacher, or I think a poetry teacher or English teacher or something.
He challenges English teacher. Yeah.
Yeah, and they do a rap battle, and to be fair to the teacher, he did a very good job. Like his wordplay and his punchlines were very strong. There are a couple of times it's well worth a watch because it is quite it's not very aggressive. It's just very playful rap battle, I think, in that arena. And yeah, it did a very good job. It's definitely in that space, and I've watched that a fair few times. That one.
Ditto. Debbie's coming in with the comments, so she's saying covers by Leo Marcello are interesting sound. I'll give that a go. And then she's also mentioned a band I really like, Disturbed. Have you heard of Disturbed by any chance?
I have heard of Disturbed, and plenty of band t-shirts.
I mean, I'm not going to try and do the vocals that he does, but he does that kind of wah noise. And they do Sound of Silence. It's an amazing cover. I recommend it. Yeah. Sorry, I've taken up most of this conversation.
No, it's all good. What a cover! Sorry? That was it has quite a cover they chose to take on.
Sorry, I've taken up this conversation with like music, not work stuff.
I enjoy both.
I'll do a work-based question, and we're gonna have to wrap things up, unfortunately, because I'm pressed for time. I'm really sorry. Usually, I give most people like an hour, but poor planning on my part.
That's right.
If you had one bit of advice or wisdom with regards to Swoop, funding, fintech, or the arena we work in, what would you give to an accountant, a bookkeeper, or a client looking for funding?
I think it really is about rolling these things out. I think we all see these new apps in the space, and whether it is Swoop or whether it is Darren over at Fathom or any of these things, I think it's just good for you to work out what the plan is to make sure it's adopted well. Because I've seen so many firms that will take on these new solutions and not really bed it in, not engage the rest of the team. It's stuck with one person who's kind of trialing it out and never really has the capacity to fully implement it. So I think when you are doing it, is key to think, I suppose, in a three, which is like the people that are involved. So who's actually going to be involved in this service line, whether that be from the type of clients that is most suitable to, but also who in your team is actually going to be delivering these services, and also around that, what education they're going to need. Like, are they confident to have the conversation? And if they're not, how do we get them to the place where they are? The platform's quite a key part as well. So what really the platform for a lot of these apps is scalability and ease of use. So making sure that's fit for purpose as well. You're the expert in this space. You'll know that not everything is fit for every single client, or fit for purpose in terms of scaling it up. So as you mentioned before, there's construction, those tradey type apps. Some work really well for those big players, and some work really well for those smaller tradies. So it's making sure you understand your client base well enough and which ones it's going to suit well with. So the platform's quite key for scalability and just tracking. And then the last one is probably process that I spend a lot of my time on, where it's not bedded into a process, like anything. And Sir Clive Woodward does this a lot around sort of the concept of like teacup, is that making sure that no matter what happens, you've built in like a response to do things out of instinct or do things out of habit. And I think building things into process is really key, because when you get to certain points of the year, trying to keep focus with your little switching the screen.
Just to make it difficult for you, man. Just to make it difficult.
It's good. I like it. It's but with the process side, if there are certain points of the year that you know that your business has certain pinch points, whether it is January, whether it is at year end, whenever the business is really stressed or really under pressure, if it isn't built into a process, you're going to find you get distracted. There'll be a 2-3 months where it isn't bedded in, and you're going to wonder why you're paying for this service and not getting much in the way of return. There's definitely loads that a vendor can do for you. But there's also some responsibility on the firm's part to make sure it's bedded in, to complement your own offering, but also to make sure every client gets an opportunity to be served with it.
Oh, man. I know I said that was going to be the final question, but there's one follow-on question I want to ask.
Go for it.
So in your experience, where have you seen that done well? And is there a particular time frame people should consider when looking, again, to embed Swoop? Like, is it a case of, obviously you can't just, meet someone at a Countex or DAS, like you're probably going to be there and go, this is a great idea, and it'll work the next week. In your experience, has there been a certain amount of time before it gets to the saturation phase?
Yeah, there's always a curve to go up, and I think it's initially a bit of a 90-day rollout. I think it depends on the size of the practice. So we work with loads of different size firms, some that are just a single, like an FD that has sort of 5 clients they do some project work for, all the way up to one of our larger firms, which is like RSM, who we work quite closely with too. They all have different challenges, but we'll probably all roll things out in a similar way. And it is about sort of the education, the awareness to clients, and then getting a few early wins to be able to build confidence, but also a bit of a case study of success to then make the next round of rollout a little bit easier. I think anything up to 90 days, I think is quite key. Is that first onboarding phase, which is quite important to make sure you are ironing out any compliance problems, you've built in the right process, and you've identified who your early adopters of this are in terms of clients and team members. So that's the kind of first part. Where I've seen it rolled out really well, to be fair, a lot of our firms have taken it and run with it, all in slightly different ways. But where I've seen it work the best is where firms are charging for the service and embedding it into their own process, services already. So using things like Go Proposal to bed it in at the point of pricing. When you are doing forecasting work, to have it as a complement to any cash flow shortfall that you identify. If you're doing VAT, it's another option to give to your client in terms of paying that. You can look to spread the liability out. So it should really bolt on quite nicely to that. And a lot of our firms, luckily, have done really well with that.
Cool. Marcus, thank you for that.
Thanks, mate.
First of all, it's been really great talking to you, and thank you for the education and Grime, and thank you for your insights on the market and fintech. I like to think people watch this and they get more understanding and more information. What you said was in my opinion spot on. So thank you very much for doing it.
Thank you.
I'd love to talk to you again. It'd be cool to do that.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And we got event season soon, so I'll be seeing you at a few expos and bits as well.
For sure. All right, I'm going to hit end stream. Remember to smile for the last 5 seconds, and then we'll
do.
roll out. Peace.
Thanks, Dale. See you.